welcome. I am seriously impressed that you got so many. I mean, I remember when we first started doing things with the men's group, Graham Foxwell said to me, don't worry about a Saturday morning, I just can't make it. Saturday morning is my morning for sleeping in. And to come out at this time of the morning on this type of weather is massively impressive. So thanks for coming, guys. It's really good to have you here. I hope you've had some refreshments. Thanks to Dave Caddick, our master chef, and the rest of the team at the back there. Well done, guys. And I'd just like to thank you guys, because it's such a privilege to be able to share a little adventure, and I'll tell you how it came about. I'll tell you right up front, it's a once-off. I have no intention of doing it again. It is much safer staying on the land, as my eldest brother Cliff will actually vouch for. But it's really lovely to have an opportunity to share it. And you know, I've got loads and loads of material, and it's taken me days just to try and sift out and try and bring stuff that you might find interesting. Just in terms of the structure of the talk, I'll give a quick introduction to myself, and then I'll talk a little bit about how I got into sailing. I'm a novice sailor, started 10 years ago, and I've got loads and loads to learn. And then I'll talk through the trip, and I'll finish with just a few sort of reflections. What are the things that really struck me, having been away 45 days on the North Atlantic? And what are the things that I think might be relevant to you as you think about your lives and how you get the most out of them? And there'll be questions at the end. If there's anything pressing, please do ask questions as we go through. So I'm a South African by birth, as you probably can hear. I've been living in the UK for about 25 years ago. In fact, Peter Swift here was my first boss. And if there wasn't for him, we probably wouldn't be here, because that gave us a little bit of financial resources to be able to come across with the whole family from South Africa and debank here in the UK. I'm married to Linda. We've been married for 40 years. Lucky lady. And I have two daughters. My oldest daughter, Kirsty, is married to Pat. He's an Anglican vicar. They live in London, and they've got their first child, our first grandchild, and we see quite a lot of them, so we're very excited about that. Our second daughter, Britt, is like my sailing buddy. I used to say she's like my boy in the family. Having grown up with boys all my life, my daughter became my boy, which really didn't make my wife very happy at all. But anyway, Britt lives in Berlin, and she's still shopping for a man that she thinks is worthwhile spending more time with. She hasn't found someone like me yet. My career is really a game of two halves. 16 years in Unilever, mainly in South Africa. I spent 2 years in the mid-90s in the UK at the global headquarters. And the thing that really is so wonderful, really, still many of those guys from Unilever are my mates today. They've sort of somehow arrived in the UK, and we remain friends, and I hope we will be so forever. My passions really, and then the second half of my career was moving into management consultancy. As I said earlier, joined Peter's business in 1999, and then Peter decided he wanted to retire. Good idea, Peter. And he sold the business, and I started my own business 18 years ago. And Duncan's from the same business that we worked for until a year ago, as I've recently retired. My passions in life are really for the outdoors. I get a massive kick out of being outside, just being out there, away from the traffic, the noise, in the natural environment, and people. And I'll talk a bit about both of those a little bit in the talk, because it really is important as we come from different walks of life that we do the things that really turn the lights on for us, the things that really we're passionate about. And as you go through life, the more time you can spend doing those things, the better. So I lead the men's ministry in our house church that Dave and Karen started about 7 or 8 years ago. We're a little church in Yateley Manor Schools across the road where most of you parked. We meet just behind that, and it's just a fantastic place to be. We're a small church of about 50 guys, and we really have a passion for reaching the men of Yateley. And that's essentially what I love doing. Just having guys like you here today, and sharing experiences that we have. And this is a regular event we're going to be doing every month, a big event like this, probably 3 or 4 times a year. But it is important that we've got something decent to chat to you about in order for you to feel that it's time worthwhile. So we run things like snooker. We have a go to a brewery every now and again. You've got to have food as well, associated with all those things, and a few beers. And once a year, we take 20 guys away down to Studland, to a beautiful old house, and it's just great fun. Last year it was Major General retired Tim Cross, who spoke about morally courageous leadership, and he gave us 3 talks. The first thing was all around, where do you get your moral compass from? How do we decide what's right and wrong? And then how do you deal with failure? All of us fail at different times. And one of the things that frustrates me most about working with men is we just don't share our problems. We don't share with each other. We don't come alongside each other. The women will chat all day about all their problems, and we keep it to ourselves because we think that we're too strong for that. So this whole thing about dealing with failure was wonderful to Tim. And then he said, do you have the courage to make a difference in his last talk? Are you going to step out of your comfort zone and go and get on with what the things that you think you need to be doing? This year, we've got this good-looking fellow here, long-standing friend, Jeff McDonald, sitting in the front seat. You see he's schlepping out in the front seat just to make sure that he's noticed. No, he's not. And so he's a long-standing Unilever friend of mine, and he's passionate about mental well-being and resilience. How do you come through difficult times? And if any of you guys would like to come along, it's the last weekend in June, and we'd love to see you. Only got 20 spots, and already half of them are taken. So if you're interested in coming along, please do let us know today. So as far as sailing is concerned, I'm a novice sailor, and definitely these are the type of sailing conditions that I enjoy. I took up sailing in 2013. You can see I got my day skipper's license. Britt, my daughter, and I went across to Croatia, and whilst Linda, my wife, and my eldest daughter, Kirsty, were lying on a beach in Greece, we actually did our day skippers in Croatia. So we qualified in 2013. And we spend most of our time in the Med. As you can see, why would you want to go and spend time away from the sunshine, in the rain, and with big swells when you can go and have experiences like that? So that's most of my experience. I've done a bit of sailing in the Solent, off the UK coast. And I must say, it's one of the most challenging places to sail in terms of technical difficulty. Big tides, lots of shallow water, lots of shipping, all of that type of thing. And I'll definitely be doing more of that, because each time I do it, I do learn a lot. So as I said, I retired about a year ago. I was lying in bed in January last year, thinking, now, how the hell can I go and continue sailing when finances are going to be a bit limited? How do I keep this going? And so I spent some time just scrolling around, seeing whether I could do boat deliveries, or I could maybe, an old bullet who was too old to sail his own yacht, I could come and be his skipper or something like that. And I realized that it probably would be quite helpful to get my next level of qualification, which is a yacht master offshore. And the only thing I needed to do that was to get some longer passages behind me. So I thought about it a bit. I came across a fantastic guy, this guy, Marcin Wojcik, a Polish guy, very experienced sailor. He's in his late 30s. And I decided to have he advertises all his routes every year on his website, and he focuses on giving people a great sailing experience. You don't have to be an experienced sailor. We had some people who had hardly sailed on one of the legs, but it's all about how do you get the most out of sailing. And he just loves teaching. He's teaching about everything the whole time, and you're just trying to absorb this as well as keep your head on your shoulders while you're being thrown around. Very good guy. And so I thought, gee, what about the Transatlantic? It's quite a long way. Never done a blue water ocean sail before, but it sounds quite interesting. But let me do a dry run first. So in July last year, I signed up and I did the English Channel, and we did a 9-day passage going down from Falmouth to the Isles of Scilly, across to Guernsey, Alderney, and then back. And my goodness, that was a wake-up call. First of all, it was big swell, and the shipping, unbelievable. And the thing when you're sailing, you're so dependent on your crew, on their teammates. You're trying to sleep there, you've got ships going past you. If those guys don't see it, you're history, you know. So you become very close as a crew as you become reliant on one another. To cut a long story short, I passed my little test, or he passed his test as well. We had to spend a lot of time together, so we needed to get on okay. And I signed up for the Transatlantic. He suggested I go on three training courses before, a radar course, a first aid, and a VHF radio course. And I can tell you what, they were all massively useful on this trip as we had to deal with different situations. So this is our yacht, Madelon. She's just an absolute beauty. You know, these are our standard slides off the internet, but she's a 42 foot in length. She's got a very nice beam, so in fact inside it's really very comfortable. You can see that she has a 4-cabin, a bit like a honeymoon suite, you know, double bed, its own heads, bathroom there, cupboard, and then you've got two cabins at the back, and then you can put some guys in the middle there as well. And I'll come back to this 4-cabin because, and I'll tell you that my Navy friend told me as soon as he heard I was in the 4-cabin, but I'll come back to that. So that's what the honeymoon suite looks like. As you can see, pretty plush. And that's pretty much what Madelon looked like when we started. And I can tell you right now, she looked nothing like that when we finished. So the poor guy who's waiting for his Madelon in Martinique had a bit of a surprise when we got there. So let me come back to the 4-cabin. So when Cole Roberts heard that I'd chosen, I'd actually asked Marchand, please can I have the 4-cabin? You know, I've got some space away from the engine noise at the back. I've got my own bathroom, all of that type of thing. When Cole had said that, he said, are you mad? You know, because the 4-cabin takes all of the edge off the swell. I mean, literally, you're going up a swell and then it drops from the front of the swell to the bottom. And I'll talk more about that because, in fact, it got to the stage where the 4-cabin was really dangerous to be in. Anyway, I did learn on the second leg, Cole. Where you now? Sitting there. I did learn on the second leg, and I moved rapidly to the off cabin when I had the opportunity to do so. You may remember towards the end of last year, October, November, we had serious storms coming over the UK. And the low pressure systems were sort of building off the coast of the USA, coming across the North Atlantic and then pummeling the coastline, particularly France and UK at that time. Madelon was storm-bound in Les Sables-d'Olonne. So has anyone heard of Les Sables-d'Olonne in the Vendée? Les Sables-d'Olonne is the home of the Vendée Globe, which is the single-handed round-the-world yacht race. And it runs every 4 years. And I was really excited to go there. We were originally supposed to start in La Rochelle, but because the yacht was storm-bound there, we had to get from La Rochelle to Les Sables, which is about 50 miles north of that. So it was storm-bound. They couldn't move it. She was supposed to come down, and we were supposed to pick her up in La Rochelle. So sadly, I was looking forward to seeing the home of one of the best European rugby teams in La Rochelle, but I didn't have the opportunity. But Les Sables was more than a good substitute for that. So Storm Kieran was the name of the storm, and you'll see the dates on some of these news cuttings. This is 2nd of November. I mean, the waves were absolutely huge. No one was going out anywhere. Everyone was bunkering down in the marinas away from that. I mean, how's the size of this guy with that breaking over there? So it was a very, very serious storm. Flights were cancelled, trains were cancelled, there were delays, and I'm trying to get from the UK to Les Sables to pick up the passage, and we're starting that passage on the 3rd of November. So those pictures are taken on the 2nd of November. So the night before I was to leave, so that I was flying out first thing on Friday, the 3rd of November. It looked like my flight was going to go. I was flying to Charles de Gaulle, but my train was cancelled. So I thought, what do I do now? You know, no trains are running from Paris out to the Brittany, to the Vendée coastline. But I decided to take the gap and have a go. So I got the plane to Charles de Gaulle, and then and then got a taxi from Charles de Gaulle to central Paris. And it was a long, long day. But the highlight of my day was a beautiful rugby stadium that you drove straight past on the right side. This is a photograph from me that I took, and this is a photograph of the inside off the internet. Anyone know that rugby stadium? Stade de France. 1 week before that, the Springboks had beaten New Zealand handsomely by 1 point. The third time that we had beaten a team by 1 point in our last 3 games. So a wonderful highlight. But it was, so I savoured that moment, and I did think very, very fondly about watching rugby with a beer in my hand the week before. It was, got to the station. Now I'm gonna, how am I gonna get to Le Sable? And now I'm thinking I've got to kill some time. So what do you do when you kill some time? So I decided to suck on a few beers. I had the most expensive pee I've ever had, but clearly after a few beers, a man's got to go, he's got to go. And then I decided, I managed to eventually get on a train about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I took some hand luggage just to actually make sure that I didn't fall asleep while I was on the train. And it was really a massive relief when I first set eyes on Madelon. There she was sitting against the pontoon, I just have never seen such a beautiful yacht. I just was so taken in with her. And it's funny when you do, we spent 45 days on her. I spent 45 days on her. You become very close to her. Because essentially, your yacht, your life's in the hands of your yacht. If your yacht actually capsizes or hits a container or something and goes down, you're history. If you get washed overboard, you're history. And so you become very, very reliant on your yacht as you go. So I met the crew. So, that I'd said I'm really interested in people, and it was just fascinating, the guys that I met. So this is Marco, an Italian from northern Italy. That's Martin. He's a Belgian living in Czechia. There's Martin, our skipper. Slava is a Russian living in New York. Stefan was my watch buddy. He is a German. And Nenad is a Croatian. He was my cabin buddy in the honeymoon suite in the fore cabin. You can see a very nice slim guy, all 115 kilograms of him. And I'll talk a bit later about some of the damage that body created or caused in the inside of Madelon as he got thrown around from left to right. It was really a truly united nation. 7 guys, all from different countries. And it's amazing that when you go through tough situations, how close you become. You're completely reliant on one another. And it was really sad when I said goodbye to them at the end of the first leg, because only Martin and I, the skipper and I, did the whole passage. The other guys all did 1 leg at a time. And I'll come back to that leg in a bit more detail. So the total passage, it was 3 legs. The first leg was from Le Sable, originally La Rochelle, but Le Sable, around Cape Finisterre down to Lisbon, supposed to be a 9-day passage. And then from Lisbon down to Tenerife, one of the Canary Islands. And then from there, we should have picked up the trade winds, which are beautiful winds from behind you, to take us all the way to Martinique in the Caribbean. And broadly speaking, it was about 9 days, and the balance, whatever it was, 45. So it's about 25 days, something like that, 27 days. But it didn't actually work out like that because there were challenges. As you can see, we were coming out here and we had a forecast wind and swell directly on the bow. So it was actually 30 degrees off the bow. So you've got massive winds coming in this direction and you're going straight into them. The worst direction, the worst course that you can steer against winds like that. The swell was building from here, across in the USA, and building and building and building. And then when it gets here, so the North Atlantic here is 4,000 or 5,000 meters deep. That's 5 kilometers. That's how deep the ocean is there. It gets here just off the coast of Europe, and it hits the continental shelf. and it goes from 4,000 meters to 100 meters, and then as you get further in, it's down to 25 meters. I've never sailed in sea that deep before. I thought Greece was deep at 100 meters, and you go right off the shore and you think, geez, this is deep. Well, it's a serious ocean, the North Atlantic, and you've got everything, all the odds against you. So the plan was to do that, and then come down to Tenerife. As we got here, in theory, we should then start picking up the trade winds, which are then coming from behind us, which is a perfect sail. It's not the fastest when you've got the winds directly behind you, but it's the most comfortable. So you can go in big swell, but with the sea behind you, you do that quite comfortably. So that's essentially what was planned. 4,500 nautical miles, 45 days in total. What we hadn't been told is that winter in November is the worst time to do the Bay of Biscay. Now, some of you guys may have heard of the Bay of Biscay, but it's the worst time. The only reason why we did that was we wanted to get these trade winds, and we had to deliver the boat in Martinique on the 16th of December because it was going on its first charter the next week. So here we've got this yacht. We've got no leeway with regards to timing. The other guys were all parking off in different marinas, having a few beers, while we had to take on the ocean to get going. So some of you may have heard of the Beaufort scale, invented by an Irish guy, a Royal Navy guy for our Navy boys here, Royal Navy officer. And the Beaufort scale essentially is this down here, and it gives you a scale from 1 to 12. And this is my favorite app on weather forecast called Windy, and it tells you which direction the winds are coming for. These white things are the winds, and how strong they are, which is the color code. So you can see this is Saturday the 4th of November, and the colors here these are knots along the bottom. So that's between 30, when you get to the blue, up to 50, 60 knots of wind, which is serious. So 56 knots of wind, you're in this zone here, okay? Most of the time it is gale, strong gale, but those are storms, violent storms. You daren't go out into the ocean under those conditions. And that's what we are now sitting in Le Sable, wanting to go, and a day later already, and you've got these winds blowing up a hoolie. So we decided to kill some time. Now, one of the big challenges on a longer passage is the provisioning. So that's 5 trolley loads of groceries. And as you can imagine, all the guys are showing off their rolls of bog roll, because you can all that food going in, it's got to go somewhere. So that was us doing the provisioning in Le Sable. That was a 9-day passage. You can imagine what the provisioning looked like when we did a 25-day passage from Tenerife to Martinique. We were just filled to the gunwales, and I'll come back to that a bit later. Clearly, there's a lot of focus on safety. Now, this yacht, Madeline, bless her, had never been out the marina. She comes straight off the shipyard. They hadn't had time to do sea trials. She was completely untested. So we had to make sure that this yacht was seaworthy or safe. Martin put all sorts of different lines up to as that we could clip onto when we were going down the foredeck. And you can see the storm jib. The storm jib, Martin brought that. It's like, you can see how big it is. There's a guy standing there. It's very, very small, and at times we even had that filled to almost nothing. It's good to have a sail up in big seas because it just helps you steer a bit. So we used the storm jib flat out for a lot of the trip. And this life jacket, you have to all buy our own life jackets, take them apart, let them inflate, and then know how to put them back again. So safety was a big thing. This was a photo I took at Le Sable on about the 4th of November. You can see the waves there. I mean, there's a lighthouse. Huge, huge, huge waves. So it was, we decided to spend the time provisioning and waiting it out. And it's the worst thing, you've set yourselves up for going out and getting going straight away. We've got a deadline we've got to make, and there we were just like stormbound, pretty helpless, waiting for the sea to go. And right through that weekend, there was news. Cliff, my brother, you're on the Spirit of Discovery, yeah? How long before then?
We went in June.
So 6 months, not even 6 months before, Cliff was on this ship. And they got caught up. This is a report on the 7th of November, but it happened on about the 4th of November. They were caught up in the middle of the Bay of Biscay. 100 people got injured on a big thing like that. And that That vessel is 20 times the length of our yacht that we were going to be in. So there's lots of the information coming through. These poor guys, 4 Danish guys, this is their yacht, broken up. That's the debris washed up. 4 people killed off the west coast of Portugal at that same time. Literally, the sea was so big, it just broke the yacht and washed them out, and they all drowned. Yeah, that was exactly the passage that we were planning to do, as you see us coming down the west coast of Portugal. So we were champing at the bit, and then Martin decided, let's go and make sure the fuel tanks are full and take jerry cans, because you always take jerry cans on these long passages as backup fuel in case you run into problems. So we decided to go and refuel, and that was the worst decision we made. One of the guys who was letting go the mooring line in the front inadvertently allowed it to fall in the water. We were going on our motors very gently across to the fuel station, and the line got caught behind the propeller and the motor cut. We had an incoming tide. It was pushing us at pace towards all this kit there, all these yachts, totally oblivious to this yacht that was totally under control, all 8 tons of her heading at pace towards them. So you can imagine us, we've got grabbing fenders, that's a fender, trying to stand on just to try and ferry the yacht as we get taken into the marina towards the quay. And I shot downstairs, and this is again, training. I'd fortunately been on a VHF course, shot downstairs, grabbed the radio and radioed for help. Heard nothing. So came back on thinking, we're on this on our own. Suddenly I saw a large rib come flying out of the darkness. It was dark at that stage. And the harbour master picked up our message, and he was there, and he had a big rib, and he managed to stabilize the yacht. We threw a line to it, and it ferried us across the pontoon. But you can imagine how embarrassing the next day was when we had to get a scuba diver to come and untangle this rope off our propeller. We hadn't even left Le Sable d'Olonne at this stage. How on earth are we going to cope with the big seas out there, Bay of Biscay? And that's the aftermath of the rope that got caught against the prop. Very stressful. And I must say, I did say to myself, how on earth are we going to do this with a brand new yacht, untested, with an incompetent crew who can't even actually look after a mooring line properly? Anyway, they stood up, and there wasn't any issue after that at all. So we're now at Monday. So we're supposed to have left on Saturday. We're now at Monday. And there's some really good advice Martin gave us. He said, make sandwiches. You're not going to be able to eat when you're out there. You can't cook food. You can't prepare food. And we made sandwiches. And we lived on sandwiches for 2 days, having left there. They were the best thing could have. Nicest sandwiches I ever tasted, I can assure you. But you can imagine very rapidly the weight started dropping off us. This is clearing immigration. You go to a house there, and you've got a sniffer dog there, checking if there are no drugs. It's quite a big thing in sailing circles where drugs are smuggled, and that's clearing customs in Le Sable d'Olonne. So that was Monday, and then at last, the big day came. We woke up. We had to make a beeline for Gijón in northern Spain to get refuge, because there was a big storm. Storm Debbie was coming the following day, and if we weren't in the safety of a marina, we would have got battered all over the show. So we just decided to we put the sails up, put the engine on 1800 revs, and we made about 6 knots as quickly as possible against the wind into Gijón. It's amazing that Madeline, she was just absolutely incredible. She got pummeled. I mean, that's a view from towards the front. So this is the starboard side. And you can see the size of the seas there, and the spray hood. The spray hood was the only protection we had. The spray hood's like that wide, and it just comes over the cockpit. Nothing else at the back. And so we're there. It's raining like crazy. It's midwinter, and we've got seas like this. If you look from the back, I mean, that's the swell behind us. We had 5-meter swells. So you can imagine from the crest to the trough is 5 meters in height. And she just bravely fought this. It's unbelievable, these yachts. They are so strong. You can hear the rigging creaking that holds the mast up, but she's just like going into the sea and laboring on. I was massively, massively impressed. So upstairs, a lot of stuff got broken just by the force of the winds. And downstairs was an absolute mess. All the cushions, beautiful. You saw how pristine it was when we started. They were scattered all around the saloon, and there was stuff broken, and it was, as I say, an absolute mess downstairs. In the forecabin, literally you can imagine, if your yacht's going up a 5-meter swell and then dropping 5 meters, literally I was lying there, and as you went up and it started coming down, you left the surface of your bed. I mean, I literally lifted 6 inches off the bed. Then as you come down and hit the trough, you then get pulled down again. Honestly, it felt like if I'd ever been 12 rounds with Muhammad Ali, I mean, you're just getting pummeled the whole time. You're holding on everywhere. Eventually, I'm lying on my bed with my feet against the roof, trying to just stabilize me and hold me down. I don't know how we didn't get injured there. I eventually said, I'm not up for this. I went and slept on the floor in the saloon. But old Nenad, my Croatian oak, he was there the whole way. But he created an enormous amount of damage. So underneath your mattress, you've got these slats, just to say you've got something to lie on, because underneath this storage room. He broke 2 of those slats just from the power of coming down. But one day, same day, he decided it's time for a pee, heads to the lovely little bathroom next to us. And sadly, when you pee on the yacht on storms like that, you have to sit down, It's like, you feel like a woman, What's this oak doing? So there he is, this large Croatian guy sitting down having a pee, gets hit by a swell, he got shot straight off the seat. And there's his efforts. Broke the toilet seat as he came down, perfect position, centrally positioned on the toilet seat, and every time I came after having my pee, I would get pinched in my leg here from this place. So we did some running repairs with a bit of duct tape. It's amazing what duct tape can do. But you can see the spray wood, that's what protected us from the sea. Incredibly strong. You can imagine the power of the sea coming over. But Nenad, he was just a wonderful guy, and I really, really loved him. And yeah. I was going to, what's the time there, please, Craig? 7:10. I'll do it. I was going to demonstrate to you how you have a pee when you've got to hold on everywhere. So Cole said to me, we're always told you've got to have one hand for the boat, okay, and then you can do whatever else, carry something or whatever, cup of tea, whatever. Well, with these seas, you couldn't have one hand for the boat because it just broke you off. You had to have 2 hands for the boat. So you go there, I'm going to reverse up now. Jeez. So you're holding like this, and then you're holding your feet like this, and you drop your drags, and then you want to get your legs down. So you're holding on, and eventually your trousers drop, and you can go and sit down and do your business. So I tell you what, the indignity of having a pee was unbelievable. But yeah, it was good fun. I've never put a wet sock on my foot, holding 2 hands. So you're sitting like this, and you sort of. In the honeymoon suite, there's a little passageway you can go through. So there was a wall. Here's a wall. I mean, like this, and you try to use one hand just to put your thing, because you can't lie on the bed because it's throwing you out. But anyway, it's amazing how you cope and get on with it. But it was serious. The forecabin was absolutely treacherous. So it came to an end. You can see our final passage. Our original passage was from La Rochelle around here, Le Sable. We were supposed to go straight across there. We had to come in at Guion, and then we handed over, we got the new crew in at La Coruña, which is just before you get to Cape Finisterre. And these poor guys, they waited in Le Sable for 3 days to go. They got pounded the absolute daylights out of them the whole way here. And then they still had to get from there down to Lisbon, which is off the map, to get their return flight. So they had a long commute from there as well. And I really loved them very much. So these are 3 of them. There's my roomie. There's my watch, Stefan. And that's Slava there. And Martin had already left. And at the end of each leg, Martin very diligently writes out certificates, so the guys have that as evidence of having done the trip. So that was La Coruña. They got their certificates, they headed off, and we then welcomed our new crew. I moved to the off cabin, as I'd said. So we're now here. This is leg 2, new crew. And the interesting thing, I really love these guys. So that's Marcin, his brother, Chris, who was my watch buddy, and Chris's 2 mates. So we had suddenly from a United Nations to a Polish invasion on leg 2. And these guys were amazing. They didn't speak very good English, but I've never seen guys eat so much food. This guy was a perfect cook. I had some great pictures of him showing his chassis off to the rest of the crew from having to sample all the food as he was doing it. So they joined us, and so we're sitting here in La Coruña. We're about 3 days behind schedule. And it's quite interesting when a new crew comes on. They're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, let's go and, I'll do this, I'll do that. And so they decided in their wisdom, we're going to be leaving Spain. As we go around, we're going to pick up the rest of our crew, the couple, Robin and Amy, in Porto, and we won't go to Lisbon, we'll head straight to Tenerife. So in their wisdom, they decided, okay, let's head off. We've got a bit of a passage coming up. We'll go and have one of these world-famous Spanish paellas. So they head to the restaurant. I decided I'd get some space, made a phone call to Linda, and and then we got back, and these 2 guys were on the first watch, literally from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 in the evening. So they were all fine. I was sleeping downstairs in the off cabin now. He was my roomie, and he took up quite a lot of space in the room. But anyway, he was a nice guy, so I decided I'm on the midnight to 4 o'clock watch. You generally go on 4-hour watches. 4 hours on, 8 hours off, but it's never 8 hours off because you're always doing food and all that sort of thing. And you can't sleep if you're getting thrown around. Anyway, I decided to go and get some sleep. And this is funny. He is such a character, this guy. So I'm lying there in my cabin. He comes off watch at 8 o'clock. Marcin now has to do a watch on his own because we're short of crew. And I get woken up by, it felt like a Polish ambush. So I'm lying there, I'm on the starboard side, we're heeling a little bit that way, the engine's on, and I just hear this guy trying to hold on to something, because you can't sleep there, he keeps on railing towards me, and you don't want a boy to touch you when you're sleeping, so he's trying desperately to hold off there. Anyway, so eventually the winds got up a bit. Marcin switches the motor off, and he puts the sails up. And as soon as you put the sails up, what happened? So this guy comes tumbling straight towards me. Now you can see he's quite a large guy. I'm now wedged against the side of the cabin, and I've got this thing, felt like a vice, just tightening on me as he lay against me. He got such a fright, he shot out of there, went into the saloon, and decided he's not sleeping in this cabin anymore. It's too close to a South African. He doesn't want to get too close to him. And then I was still awake. I didn't go back to sleep. And about 15 minutes later, there he comes back into the cabin again, trying to make himself comfortable, because he was found that the saloon was quite rough. Anyway, we made a plan that we would sleep across the cabin. So instead of a long ways across it, put our feet against the side, and we were fine. And it's quite interesting, in those moments you start building a bond with people like that, and so we had a great laugh about it. So this part here, as we came around Cape Finisterre, was probably the toughest of the whole passage. We thought Biscay was big. Well, Cape Finisterre, which blows up a hoolie, was unbelievable. We were thrown around. When I came on my watch at midnight, I was greeted by 3 prone bodies in the saloon, all with plastic bags next to them, completely seasick and not doing at all well. So from that night, I came on at midnight, I stayed on watch in serious seas until 9 o'clock the next morning. You normally do 4 hours. So it was double that. Marcin hadn't gone to sleep since he left La Coruña. Eventually I had a 3-hour sleep, came up, relieved him. He must have been on watch for about 20 hours in those big seas. Amazing guy, very fit. And the Polish guys took, this guy here, Chris, my watch buddy, took 2 days to recover. And when you're sailing, you don't want to get seasick. It's really, really not nice at all. I must say, Cape Finisterre will live with me forever. And Dave mentioned that I've got other things up my sleeve. I walk in the Camino de Santiago in 2 months' time. It starts here, and ends there at Santiago de Compostela. And it's renowned for the winds that blow up there. And when you watch the Vendée, when the guys around Cape Finisterre, that's when they know they're on the home stretch, but you've got to get past the Cape first. So the rest of the trip was pretty much uneventful. As we came down here, we picked up Amy and Robin there, and as we came down here, it got progressively warmer. The winds were in pretty much the right direction. In fact, the winds had actually changed to northeasterly, so we had them on the port, back of the yacht on the port side, and we had a pretty easy sail. But one of the things that, Tenerife, when we got to Tenerife, Santa Cruz, it was like such a sight for 4 hours, for sore eyes. But there is everyone madly preparing their yachts because they want to now do this long one across to Martinique. All the yachts are loaded with jerry cans for spare fuel, and everyone's doing something on the yachts. And it was really, I had to have a laugh about this. So at the top of the mast, you can see there's lots of technical kit. There's marching up the mast. I mean, this guy was unbelievable. What you've got to do if you're going up the mast, you get a halyard that winches you up. You sit in a bosun's chair, and the bosun's chair has to be the most uncomfortable thing to sit in because you're sitting there and it's pinching you between the legs and it's squeezing your nuts like nothing's you can't get away from, and you can't do anything. You're suspended in mid-air, and Marchin must have gone up the mast 10 times on the whole passage. Sometimes in the marinas, but often out in the middle of the ocean where the yacht's doing this as well. Incredible guy. And then I heard a huge commotion at a yacht 2 away from us. And I look up and I see this. So there's someone there, and there's someone there. And it happened to be the French way of sorting out the mast. You know the French guys, they're buttes, aren't they? So here he is. The guy sent his girlfriend, his wife, his hitchhiker, or whatever, at the top of the mast. He's standing down there having a suntan in his costume and shouting orders to her. And if you just have a closer look at her, she is absolutely frightened. I mean, she's holding on for dear life there, and he's down there having a breeze, shouting the orders up to her. So I had to have a laugh at the French. They'd certainly do things differently from the Polish. So leg 3. So Tenerife, the original plan was to go straight from Tenerife across to Martinique. But the trade winds changed, and we decided to come down the African coastline to Cape Verde and then head across. And the whole time you're doing that part of the passage, which is about 25 days, you're looking for the trade winds. So you're going a bit further south, a bit further north. And that was the passage that we eventually did. A lot further than just going straight. 5 new crew members, Andreas, a German, Miguel, a Spanish, Maya, a Russian living in Belgium, Dave, an English guy, and Urban, a Slovenian living in the Netherlands. Just, I mean, an interesting bunch of people. And it's amazing, again, each time the crew's changing, how you adapt and meet such interesting characters. So, like I said, if you remember the 5 trolleys that we got in Le Sable, we had double that here of food, water. We had something like 450 liters of bottled mineral water. Can you imagine how many bottles it is? I mean, the plastic is unbelievable. They need to invent a way of not having to drink bottled water. We had 20 kilograms of rice, 25 kgs of tin food. It was unbelievable. I've never seen so much food in my life before. So we woke up on Thursday, the 23rd of September, and then headed off again at sunrise for the last leg of our passage. And as we got progressively closer to the equator, that's about 19 degrees north of the equator, it got progressively hot. And a yacht's a small place, very, very hot, humid downstairs, so sleeping was a big challenge. So the nice thing is that there was good weather for being up deck, but when you've got 7 people in a cockpit, small cockpit, while you're trying to be on watch, it's not very pleasant. And Martin decided, you've got a long passage, we don't want you guys using all the water on showers and that, so we were limited to a shower every 3 days. Yes, I tell you what, I've never struggled so much. You can imagine. Humid conditions, sweating like crazy, shower every 3 days. So I decided, in South Africa you say a boer maak 'n plan, so a guy makes a plan, essentially. And so I grabbed one of those kitchen wash-up cloths that you wash the dishes with, and I repurposed it as a face cloth, and I washed all the bits that needed to be washed, and that kept me sane for the period of that. Anyway, we had perfect conditions, and again we had a lot of time there for training, for reading, for chatting, and most importantly, admiring the beauty around us. There's this quote that I heard yesterday from a guy called Blaise Pascal. He was a 17th century French mathematician, physicist, and philosopher. He invented the early digital calculator, syringe, and hydraulic press, and the roulette wheel, for those guys who like playing roulette. And he made the famous quote, and I love this quote. He said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." We always got to do things, always noise, always got to do up and about. And this yacht gave the perfect opportunity to have this beautiful, massive room in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean all to ourselves. And it's such a privilege there, being able to see the beauty around us. I mean, I thought Africa had the best sunrises and sunsets. I mean, I've never seen. I mean, I think that was a sunset. Yeah, I think it was a sunset. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The colors, because the winds were from behind us, we had our sails like this, which is called goose-winged, and so you have them out on either side. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, the moon at night, the stars, the dolphins, you guys swimming. We were swimming in 5,000 meters there. We had flying fish around us, and at night they got attracted to the headlight. You can see that's my watch buddy with his headlight on, and came literally straight out the sea, landed on the deck, and he was playing as if he was going to eat it. But the beauty, and the thing for me is that, you're just lying there on your back, and you're looking up at the sky, and you see this mass of stars, the moon, the planets, and you think, and Earth's only smaller than all of this. Here we're sitting down a yacht in the middle of the North Atlantic, and I'm just one of 8 billion people on this earth. It does bring you down to earth how insignificant we are in the world. We think often we're the center of the world, but there's a big world out there. And I think often we don't notice that. We don't take a full recognition of how much is around us, how much there is to learn. You lie there and you just look up at this rich tapestry, and you think, how on earth can people say there's not a God? How can this not be something that's created, his handiwork, that's available for us to enjoy? And so often we don't get the most out of it. So it was wonderful, wonderful. We eventually arrived in Martinique. We first sighted which is the island called? Just off to the right, Dominica. And it sort of was coming out to sea. It was early in the morning, and then we came down the west coast of Martinique, and it was just unbelievable sensation, sort of relief, excitement, just unbelievable sense of an epic adventure that will remain with me forever. It's an unbelievable experience, and here's this novice sailor going on taking the ocean. I learned so much. I learned so much about sailing. I learned so much about people. If you think that sky, I know nothing about the stars. The sea, I know nothing what's below us. I mean, in a sea like that, there's so much available for us to learn out there. So just very quickly, some reflections. So the first thing that really struck me was the gift of an abundant life. And I've spoken a bit about that with our natural world and how beautiful it is. The sailing courses I went on, learning is infinity, is always something that we can learn. The beauty of creation, the clouds, looking at the clouds and saying, what does that mean for me? What does it mean for the winds? What does it mean for the swell? There's such a rich resource out there that we know absolutely nothing about. And it did make me realize there's just so much in life that we can learn. And so often we just get so sucked into our day-to-day things, into the issues of today, and don't open our mind out to this abundant world that's there right out of our feet. So, I mean, how about you guys? I mean, perhaps you want to think about your life. Do you have an abundance mentality? Do you see all of this around us? You know, I know that we're worried about things like inflation and wars and these guys misbehaving around, you know, be it Palestine, whatever it might be. And often we're blinded at the possibilities around us, right at our fingertips. So one of the challenges for me today is, do we think about these things, guys? Everything around us, all the beautiful stuff that's accessible to us, doesn't cost any money to put on some shoes and go for a walk. It's all there, available for us. So the gift of a truly abundant life. And let's not waste that gift. It's being given to us. Second point, the uniqueness and goodness of people. Now, I'm a past master at looking at someone, forming a view at first notice, judging it from my point of view and saying, geez, that's not the sort of guy I want to spend time with. You know, when you're on a yacht, you can't go anywhere. So we spend a lot of time talking. Interesting people, interesting lives. I got educated on drugs, you know, recreational drugs, from the worst to the not so worst by my buddy Urban. He'd spend one morning just telling me, you know, and then he said to me the one morning, we're lying there looking at the stars, I said, Dave, tell me something. What is it like in heaven? So I said to him, Urban, I've got actually no clue, but I know it's going to be bloody nice, so I can't wait to get there. So he was a real character, Urban. So, yeah, work on a yacht is never ending. I mean, you can imagine the space is limited. There's always cleaning up to do, fixing, you know, trimming the sails, cooking food. It never stops. And you constantly have to think about the other people, their space. There's no personal space on the yacht. You know, what is important to them? How can you make their trip nicer for them as well? How do you make them feel safe and cared for when you're on a yacht? I've been married for 40 years, as I said earlier, and I must say I miss my wife terribly. I don't think I've ever loved her so much. It's amazing, you know, 40 years, and I just couldn't wait to see her when I got home. I thought a lot about my family and friends. You know, there's a WhatsApp group that we had, and you guys who happen to be part of that, you cannot believe how uplifting your messages are. Comms is so important. When you're going through tough times, to know there's some guy who's got your back out there, who's praying for you, who's supporting you, thinking of you, and yeah, it's unbelievably uplifting. You know, there are times I'd come off watch in the middle of the Bay of Biscay. I was absolutely buggered. I mean, I literally would collapse my bed. Your clothing's all wet. You couldn't dry your clothing. There's condensation all in the inside of the yacht because all the hatches are closed. You jump in your bed and you wet clothing. It's the only way you can dry it. You know, it's unbelievable messages. So those guys who sent me messages, I really am grateful for that. And, you know, I think the key thing for me is that each person is unique and fascinating. Do we take time to find out about other people? You know, what's rocking the boat? What are they struggling? What have they been through? We've all got different lives. We're completely different. What are the challenges they've been through? We had Paul Cowley speaking at breakfast not so long ago, end of last year. Here's a guy who was a prisoner. He had to deal. He got locked up. He was a thief, a prisoner, got locked up. And he came from a difficult background, difficult family background. We take for granted what we're given. You know, we need to understand that everyone comes from a different background. And maybe that explains why they see things differently and don't behave like we behave. So how about you guys? Do you take a genuine interest in other people? Do we care about other guys? Or are we so self-absorbed and have no energy to give to anyone else but to ourselves? How do we step off that? We need to think about everyone around us. It took a bit of getting used to. Going for walks here in the southeast, and you walk past someone and look straight past you, walking the dog. Oh, hello. Oh, yeah. It's like you don't exist. We get in little cocoons. You know, we put ourselves in little cocoons and separate ourselves from people. We need to have mates alongside us, and that takes investment and time and energy to do that. So if your mate's got a problem, does he know that you're available to come there alongside him, put your arm around him? And if you are really struggling, who's the guy you're going to phone? Whose shoulder you're going to go and cry on? Well, we're so ridiculous as men. We keep everything. We don't want to be vulnerable. You know, don't want to make myself seem as if I'm not a proper man. We need to cry. We need to come alongside guys. It's very, very important. And it's very, very important for our mental health and well-being. You need buddies around you. and you need to invest in your family. Last point, temporary nature of our human existence. My goodness, unbelievable. The uncertainty. There's uncertainty all around us. You guys may have read a week ago, this guy, Tom Kingston, son-in-law of Prince and Princess Michael of Kent, close friend of my son-in-law. He was actually at my son-in-law's wedding. He died at the age of 45 years. 2 days ago, Dave Myers, you guys may know him from Harry Barker fame. 1 month younger than me. He died of cancer. A good buddy of mine in his 50s felt a tightness in his chest a little while ago, decided to have it checked out, and was in hospital last week, and they found that the main artery into your heart was 95% clogged. If he hadn't had that operation, he may have had a very, very different life going forward. Another close friend of mine in his early 60s went for a biopsy of suspected cancer this week. Guys, life is short. We need to make the most of it. It's there available for us. While sailing, I could have been washed overboard. We could have hit a container and sunk. Madelon could have been broken up by the seas. Marco could have died in my arms. We need to think about these things. There's no time. There's no time to waste. We, in this same room here, we run Alpha for our community here at Yateley. It's running at the moment. Alpha is a Christian course for people who don't have a faith. The theme of the first week is, have you asked yourself the important questions of life? Have you asked yourself the important questions of life? Questions like, is there more to life than this? Or is it just, what I've got is my lot, and I'm going to live with it, and when I die, it'll be fine. I'll go and they'll throw me under the ground, and that's fine. What's the point of being here? What difference am I making to this world? Why am I here? What's my purpose? Where am I heading in the future? Am I just going to get put in a coffin and put on the ground? There's more to life than this. And part of this is about taking the shutters off. Have you asked yourself similar questions? I hear lots of talk around mindfulness and, caring for yourself and meditation and loads of other things. It's often all about what I can do for myself to live a better life. If so, do you honestly believe that you can have a good and healthy life and it's in your hands? I can tell you it is not in your hands. Anything can happen tomorrow unsuspecting. Life's short. If you don't have a faith yet, I urge you to explore. What's the worst thing that can happen? You can end up by going back to what you were. The most stupid person will not be to give it a go. And I tell you what, it makes a massive, massive difference to your life. It's not for girls, I promise you. Faith is something that all of us need. Whatever faith you follow, you need to have a faith. You need to know the world is much bigger than you personally. You are not the center of the world. And I urge you guys, don't leave it too late. You never know where things could end up. What is the time there, Craig, please? Okay, guys, I'm going to finish there, I think. I just wanted to, there's something about celebration. So that's the final reading we took on our plotter, 4,777. The certificate I got. This was a WhatsApp message I sent to all the guys who had supported me, just saying, unbelievable, thank you. And that was saying goodbye to Madelon when I left. You get very close to your yacht. She becomes part of your living being. So, that's it. Any questions?